What's up guys, Corbin Zimmer here with One More Fitness, and today we're going to talk about meal prep. Okay, so you just got your macro plan and you got your numbers, but now it's time to make sense of those numbers. What do they mean? What foods do we eat to make up those macros? So what I like to do is make sure that we have some staple foods prepped and ready to go, foods that we know are going to be healthy for us, full of nutrients that we like to eat, and also that we want to eat over and over again, because if we're not going to do it over and over again, we're not going to be successful anyways, right? So we want to find foods that we like, but also foods that are healthy. That's very important, okay? So I'm going to start with talking about carbs, a couple carb options that I like to have on hand and staple carbs at the house, okay? Remember, the better that you prep and the more food that you have ready to go, the more successful you're gonna be in the long run. So some carbs that I really like, one of my staple carbs is sweet potatoes. I really like sweet potatoes. They're full of nutrients. They also give you a nice slow digesting carbohydrate, so the energy will be a little more sustained than something, say, like just a fast digesting sugar. So that's important. It's going to give you a little bit more of that even energy. And then, not to mention that they taste really good too. So it hits all those categories for me. They're full of nutrients. They're going to help me hit my macros, and I like to eat them. Okay. So that's the sweet potatoes. Other carbs could be something like rice, white potatoes, beans, bread, fruits and veggies. And all those are very important. So we want to have a nice balance of food that you have ready to go so that you can stay on point with your diet, okay? We want to pick primarily whole foods to make up most of your macros. So about 75 to 80% should be coming from whole nutritious foods. And we'll talk about that in a second. But so real quick, some other good carb options are just fruit, because they're ready to go. So essentially they're prepped, okay? We can have them and they're really easy to log, and once again, full of vitamins and nutrients, okay? So the next thing we want to talk about is proteins. Protein, usually for most people, it's pretty hard to get in your total protein goal, okay? So especially at first. So you might find yourself eating way too much of one type of protein and getting sick of it. We want to prevent that. We want to have a little more variety in our sources. Lean meats is a good way to start, and it's always good to have some lean meats prepped. It's going to really have a high quality protein source. It's going to satiate you, so that energy, or the energy from the food, will last a little bit longer. You'll stay satisfied a little longer. And also, once again, I like chicken. There's a lot of things we can do with it, okay? There's, we can make a ton of different recipes just from one plain chicken breast. So I just have plain chicken breast, and then I'm gonna do all types of stuff with this throughout the week to make different meals. So having a lean meat that you really like is important also, okay? And then also having some veggies on hand, that's gonna really bring some more micronutrients in, which is so important. So make sure that we have a little bit of veggies in each one of our meals also, okay? So next, let's talk about fats. Some good healthy fats we're gonna go over here. We got avocado right here. So once again, it's already prepped, ready to go. Just gotta measure it out. We also have, let's see here, some nut butter. So this is cashew butter right here. This tastes really good. You can also use peanut butter or almond butter if you prefer. We have some avocado oil, so olive oil, coconut oil, whatever you prefer. But just know that if you're putting oil on your food, you need to account for it, because it still is high in fat, which is high in calories. So it's not just healthy oils, use as much as you want. We gotta still measure everything out, just like anything, okay? Flaxseed is another really good fat, good fiber also. So I like to add flaxseed to my shakes, and we're gonna actually go over that in the next video, so stay tuned for that. Also just almonds, nuts, whole eggs is another really good source of fat. Also some protein associated with it. But yeah, so we want to first, when you're kind of thinking about how to set up your macros for the day, you should really start with your protein. Log your protein first, because that'll probably be the hardest one for you to hit. And then once you have about 80% of your protein logged for the day, then we're going to log carbohydrates, okay? So we're going to log about 80 to 90% of your total carbs for the day. So now your MyFitnessPal will look like, okay, you got most of your protein logged, you have most of your carbs logged, and you have a little bit of fat left over. So that's when you start to fill the remaining fat grams with healthy fats. So you can say, okay, I got 10 grams of fat left over, I'm gonna add a little bit of oil, or you know what, okay, I have 10 grams of fat left over and I have 10 grams of protein, you know what, that's 2 eggs. So it's all about kind of just finding what you like and playing Tetris to add up to the amount, but also picking healthy foods to do so, okay? And then the same goes for you know, when we talked about having about 80% of your total intake in whole healthy foods, then we can also add in, let's say that at night you're really craving some ice cream. Well, we can make room for a little bit of carbs, or sorry, room for that ice cream by saving a little bit of carbs and fat for night. Okay, so as long as we're keeping it in moderation and we're not going overboard and just trying to cheat the system and get a bunch of junk food in by hitting our macros, it's really a great approach to eating, because one of the ways that we're going to be successful in our diet and make it last long term is a diet that we can adhere to, that we can sustain. Okay, so that's going to take eating foods, once again, that we like to eat. Okay, so it's not just about having a strict, rigorous diet that no one wants to keep up. It's about having a nice balance, whole, healthy, nutritious foods, but also a little bit of treats for yourself also, just to keep, you know, for the psychology behind it, just to keep you going and not feeling like you're burning out. Okay, so just a couple take-home points, guys. We want to make sure that we have foods prepped and ready to go. Remember, if you fail to prepare, you prepare to fail, just like the saying goes. And we want to make most of our meals about 80% whole, healthy, nutritious foods, so foods that come from the earth. And then we can fill the rest, about 15 to 20%, with more packaged foods, or, you know, more treats that you like. Okay, so stay tuned for the next shake video. I'm going to show you guys how to make an awesome shake. It's going to be a great way to get into nutrition on the go. I'm also going to show you how to measure it out and weigh it out. Okay, thanks for watching, guys. Let's get it.